David here with Fig Boot on Pens. It's interesting how over time your opinion of a pen can change. You might purchase it and then for one reason or another it finds its way to the back of your pen drawer and it goes unused for months or years. Today I have for you a pen that has been in my collection for a while, and I'll admit it really hasn't received much use. I had a friend who actually wanted to purchase the pen from me, so I figured that I should review it before selling it. And then in taking a more detailed look at this pen, some of my feelings about it changed. The pen that I'm going to be talking about today is the Namisu Orion. What I'm going to do is go over the parts and the features of the Orion, talk about some of the things I care for, some of the things I don't care for, show some measurements, size comparisons, and then provide a writing sample. Oh, and then stay tuned because I have a very nice version of this pen that I'll be giving away courtesy of Namisu, who provided the second pen to me for review and to give away to one of you. Oh, just a note to begin with, I will be attending the DC Pen Show coming up this upcoming week. That it's being held at a new venue this year, so there's a lot of unknowns going on with the show, but what is known is that, as always, it will be a proverbial who's who of the fountain pen world. So if you're debating whether or not you should make it out to the show, I highly encourage you to do so. And if you do make it to the show and see me walking around, make sure to say hi. While I don't have an extremely long shopping list for the show, there are a few things that I plan to pick up, and I'll definitely be doing a recap of the show. So at that time, I'll share what I picked up and then show you a bit of what went on at the show. One thing I am excited for is that I was able to get a seat in the Richard Bender nib workshop. There was only 16 seats available, so I felt fortunate to be able to register online in time enough to get a seat. But I'm really looking forward to the show and looking forward to spending some time with friends and then other folks that I meet, old friends and new friends. Okay, back to this pen. Namisu is a company based out of the Fife region of Scotland. I mentioned it during my recent Q&A, but I had the pleasure of traveling to Fife a couple of years ago, and I really enjoyed the area. I was there on a golf trip. Here's a picture of the old course in St. Andrews, but it's a very beautiful area with lots of scenic coastline. Here's a picture of another course I played in a place called Crail. I mean, that's just an amazing view. I was able to see some of the other sites in the area as well. Like down in Anstruther, I went to this fish and chips place that my caddy at one of the golf courses told me was one of the best in the UK. And it was, indeed. It was very good. I also came across this little street fair, which I thought was interesting. Besides touristy things, if I'm traveling around, I kind of like to see what the locals are up to. Something that made me laugh, there was a booth here for kids, and rather than a pin the tail on the donkey, they had a pin the ear on Van Gogh. I just got a chuckle out of that. Okay, this time I'm really going back to the pen. The pen arrives in this box. It says Namisu on the front. And you take off the sleeve, and then there is an interior box, which is like a thick, thick paper, but it kind of has a little rubbery feel to it. It's just kind of nice, something a little bit different. You pull out the drawer, and inside there is a little pouch. And the pouch is nice. I really don't use boxes over and over again, but I do keep the pens in pouches and things like that. So if you're a manufacturer, I'd encourage you to include things like little pouches and things like that, because those are something that actually gets really used as opposed to most boxes, which are rather disposable. And then inside we have the pen. This is the Namisu Orion, and this is the aluminum version. Namisu has successfully launched a number of their pens via Kickstarter, and the Orion was one of them. But the name has changed. During the Kickstarter campaign, it was called the Nexus, I believe. The Orion comes in 3 different materials. It comes in this aluminum here, and then it comes in copper, and then it comes in stone-washed titanium. I purchased this aluminum version for myself a while back, and then Namisu was kind enough to send along one of the stoned wash titanium versions, which is right here, and this is the one that I'll be giving away at the end of the review. So stay tuned for details about that. The pens are identical other than materials and the nib size. Mine is a fine, and then the one I'm giving away is a medium. But I think during the review here I'm just going to kind of show the aluminum just because I think it shows up a little better on camera. But we'll see more of the titanium here in a bit. The end of the cap is perfectly flat, and the cap angles up a little bit, and then we have 4 square grooves circling the pen. The barrel then tapers down, and then at the end of the pen it's perfectly flat as well. The Orion has a minimalistic design overall that I really like. I think it does look very sharp. The cap screws off, and this is one of my favorite features of the pen. The seam that's between the cap and the barrel is really hidden in this first groove. It's truly invisible, that you really don't see it in there until you unscrew the cap. And then underneath the small cap, the Orion has a Bach nib. There's no size markings on the nib that I could see, but this particular one is a fine. And here's a look at the plastic feed. The section has a rather unique design with the cap threads right there at the beginning. If you hold your pen a bit farther back, it's not an issue, and the grooves actually help provide a solid grip on this metal, which is nice. But I have a tendency to hold my pens right on the end of the section, so on this pen I find that my grip often kind of falls off the front of the pen and onto the threads, and it's really not a comfortable position. I find myself having to adjust my grip on this pen on a regular basis, but that's just me. If you grip it a little farther back, it's perfectly fine. Another thing about having the design of having the threads here at the front is that when you ink up the pen, you have a tendency to dip this portion of the pen into the ink, and the ink has a tendency to really get deep into the threads. And I found that using a dry tissue or paper towel doesn't really seem to do a decent job of getting the ink from deep in those threads, but if you just wet whatever you're using a bit, it helps a little bit more to get out the ink. Even with a wet tissue though, I've had a challenge getting 100% of the ink out of the threads. While the cap does post, it's not necessarily particularly secure, and this tiny cap on here just looks a little bit silly at the end of the pen, so I prefer to use this pen unposted. If you choose to use this pen posted, the cap on the aluminum model hardly weighs anything. It's only like 3 grams, so it doesn't throw off the balance of the pen at all. And while on the titanium version, the cap weighs twice as much, but it's still only 6 grams. So it applies to that as well. So it doesn't backweight the pen or throw off the balance of the pen at all. Unposted, the Orion is plenty long enough to use comfortably. And that both the aluminum and the titanium versions are rather cool to the touch, which I like. Now, I'm no metallurgist, but I kind of find that the titanium version feels slightly warmer than the aluminum version, even if both pens have been sitting in the same location. Not quite sure what that is, but that's just kind of the way it feels, at least to me. The Orion is a cartridge converter pen. It didn't arrive with any cartridges, which is fine by me, but it does come with a standard International Schmidt converter, which is nice. And just like with the cap, the seams between the section and the barrel are hidden in this back groove. And I just like that design aspect of the Orion. Now, here's the stonewashed version of the pen again. The aluminum version has more of a matte finish, and the titanium has more of a raw metal look and feel. And while it's smooth to the touch, it has more of a textured look to it, which is nice. Of the two, I kind of like the weight of the titanium version. The added weight just feels a little bit more comfortable in my hand. There's nothing wrong with the aluminum one, but of the two, I'd have to prefer the titanium. There's a link below in the notes to the Namisu website where you can find both of these pens, as well as the brass version. They offer a number of other fountain pen models as well, each of which kind of have different variations on a smooth, minimalistic design. The aluminum version retails for 40 English pounds, or a little over 50 US dollars, and the titanium model is 74 pounds, or just under 100 US dollars. And I do feel that both are a decent value for the money and are appropriately priced for what you received. Now, I mentioned it at the top of the review, but after purchasing my Orion, I really didn't get that much use out of it. There wasn't anything inherently wrong with the pen. I just think that at the time I was acquiring a large number of pens, and the Orion kind of just got lost in the wave of new acquisitions. And it was a pen that I really never revisited. But after spending some time with it more while doing this review, I think that was a bit of a mistake. The Orion is a decent pen. Pretty much my only issue with the pen is the cap threads. And other than that, I like the looks. I think it has a unique minimalistic design that I appreciate. In the Bach nib, as you'll see in the writing sample, performs well. I think one of the reasons I didn't use this pen that much is that I purchased it with a fine nib, and you'll see in the writing sample, but it's very much a fine nib. And in most cases, I found that the fine nibs aren't some of my favorites. But that's just my personal choice and what I've found that I like. But I will say that this titanium model I'll be giving away has more of a medium nib, and I do care for this nib a great deal more than the fine. Now, I've agreed to sell the aluminum model to a friend, and I'll be giving away this titanium one, so that's going to leave me without one. And now I'm kind of regretting that, so we'll see. I might just need to pick up another one of the titanium models for myself. I really do like this material. I just think it looks rather cool. In regard to the giveaway, if you would like to enter to win this titanium model, courtesy of Namisu, just leave a comment here on YouTube. Today is Saturday, July 29th, 2017. You have until the end of day on Tuesday, the 1st of August, to enter. In regard to a comment topic, the Orion is a pen that started on Kickstarter. So why don't you let me know if you've ever purchased any pens from Kickstarter and whether that pen was worthwhile or not worthwhile. The topic is not required, just a suggestion. Oh, and in one final note, in regard to my recent giveaway contest where you had to find the code, the answer was Lamy All-Star. In order to solve the code, you had to notice that there were numbers hidden behind me in the videos, then take those numbers and realize that they correspond to letters in the alphabet. Then you had to unscramble the letters and come up with the answer, which was Lamy All-Star. Originally, I had worried that folks would get frustrated solving the code and that there wouldn't have many correct answers, but I was wrong. I had close to 200 correct entries. And lots of folks cracked the code rather quickly. So who knows? I might need to come up with something much more difficult to solve in the near future. There is kind of a fine line between having a puzzle that is challenging and one that's too difficult. I just want to make sure that I don't create something that's too frustrating but yet is still fun to solve. So, thanks to the good folks at Namisu for providing a pen for review and for giveaway. And now it's time for some measurements, size comparisons, and a writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Namisu Orion. This is the aluminum version, and then this is the titanium version. Then here it is with a Wingsung 698. That's a pen that's been getting a lot of attention lately. It's one I need to review sooner rather than later. And then also in regard to new pens, something that I just received this week is a Monteverde Sequoia, which you might just be seeing a review of next week, and also a giveaway courtesy of Goulet pens. But that is what it looks like in comparison to the Namisu. Then in regard to some larger pens, here it is with a Sailor King of Pen Pro Gear Sky. Then here it is with a Pilot 823. And then another new acquisition, this is a Visconti Opera Metal Silver Shadow. And so that's what it looks like in comparison to that. So here we go with the writing sample for the Namisu Orion. And this is the titanium version and the medium steel nib. And the ink that I'm using is Roaring Klingner. And it's Verdura. This is what the ink looks like. It's kind of a nice like ivy green type color. Kind of similar to something like Papier Plume ivy green, or even just like a little bit darker than Diatramentus sandalwood, or kind of like a Monteverde green. It's just a little bit darker than that. This is what the bottles look like. I like the design of these bottles. I kind of like the vertical bottles more than the horizontal bottles, and so it has a nice wide lid, so it's nice and easy to get in there. But I have a number of the Roaring Klingner inks, and they're nice. I like them. So here we go with a writing sample. And then, just for comparison's sake, that's the medium. This is the fine. And why there isn't a ton of difference in line variation, I find the main difference is more in the feel. The fine has a bit more feedback to it, and the medium is a little bit more on the smoother side. So I kind of appreciate both, but I like the medium just a little bit more. That you can get a little bit of line variation out of here if you push it a bit, more than you would think on some steel nibs. And it is decently wet. I'd say kind of on the medium side. And then in regard to reverse writing, it works just fine. And then in regards to some fast writing, it performs just fine. So the Namisu Orion, this is the stonewashed titanium as well as the aluminum version. I think that they're interesting pens and worthwhile to check out. You can check them out below in the link to Namisu's site in the notes below. That it performs well, and it just, I do like the looks of it, and it's something rather unique. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, then I'd encourage you to check out these pens. Wanted to thank Namisu for the donation of the stonewashed titanium version for the giveaway, and that until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.